Able to do this because they're in the middle of their season right now, which they're killing it. What's your record?
0-5.
All right. Actually, you heard it here first. They're tanking to get Caitlin. Okay.
That's not true. Spread that anywhere.
But they played in Dallas last night. That's why this was able to work, which is so cool. And so we're going to take it back to the beginning. We started working out and doing basketball skill training together. And this was back in O'Fallon, Missouri. So I want to show you something that you wrote and read when you were in high school. And I'd just like to get your thoughts on this.
Dear basketball, even though we've had our ups and downs, I'm still so thankful I found you. You've given me some of the best moments of my life. Although I've had to sacrifice a lot for you, like parties, sleepovers, and summer in general, you have given me so much more in return. You're the reason I'll be able to go to the college of my choice, the reason that I've been able to travel to so many amazing places, and most importantly, the reason I've made so many lifelong friends. So thank you, basketball.
So as you reflect back on that, what does it make you think?
I look really young. Also, I mean, I think all of that stuff is still true. It's funny because it sounds superficial, like when you read it back, but that's important to you when you're, in high school, those summer parties or hanging out with your friends. But again, I think I feel the exact same way. Even though the sacrifices may have been a little bit more than just parties, it's still 100% worth it to me for everything I've been able to accomplish, and my life is shaped around that, and I wouldn't be here today without it, so I'm so grateful.
Hey, well, I was going to ask you about that because what were the ups and downs as a high schooler?
I mean, just like I said, that superficial stuff, like you can't go to sleepovers, which are the most important thing when you're in high school, like missing those parties, missing summer, it's the most fun time.
Because you were gone 16 weeks in the summer.
Yeah, AAU basketball takes up a lot of the summer. You're in workouts, especially the high school I went to was they really try to prep you for college, so we had more intense workouts. I was with you, so yeah, I mean, that stuff is important when you're 16.
It is, and I would ask you, as you think about the next chapter, when you went to UConn, if you had those 4 years, a chapter title for those 4, what would it be?
Growth.
And if you were going to talk about your relationship to the sport while you were at UConn, what's the look for?
Because it's ever changing. Like each year I thought it was different. For some years it felt like toxic to me just because I was so in my head about it. Some years it was growth, some years it was the best years of my life. So each year I think is different. You can't put like one label on all 4 because you change so much in college.
And if you think about the toxic times, what was different like in how you interpreted things versus the growth times?
So the hardest time was my freshman year, absolutely. Just, everyone that goes to UConn is the best from where they come from. And they tell you that. And it's going to be hard, especially physically. I was prepared for that. I knew that, I needed to put on weight. I knew I needed to get better basketball-wise, but you don't know how hard it's going to be mentally. Just being around, my senior was Breanna Stewart, the best player in the world right now. So trying to, live up to that and the expectations that come with such a demanding coach, it's what makes you better, but he said before he tries to break you down to build you up, and that breakdown is really brutal.
And when he said, I'm going to break you down, what did you think before it happened?
That he wouldn't be able to, obviously, like I'm sure everyone does. But he got me.
He got me. And how did you know
that he broke me down?
Yeah.
Just the black hole that I went into in my mind. And I've never experienced that before. My freshman year was just like so many highs and lows. Just suffering with confidence, I thought I was such a good player. And I just got into my head where, I never struggled with remembering plays before. I couldn't remember a play because I was so nervous every time I stepped on the court. I started, then I lost my starting spot, like in the middle of a game.
And how did you know you lost your starting spot in the middle of a game?
He said, you're out, Keeners, or Lou, you're in. There's no questioning how he feels.
Yep.
He'll tell you.
And what are the benefits of playing for a coach like that?
I would go there again. It was the hardest time of my life, my freshman year, but it created the player that I am, and I think it made me so much more mentally strong because throughout basketball, you're going to get into those lows, and it made me fight. Like, it made me become a fighter mentally because it took me an entire season. I felt like I wasted a whole freshman season being in my head about just suffering with confidence. And it took until the tournament where I finally got out of it, where I'm like, I'm here for a reason. I'm a good player. Let me just show it. I just have to play freely. But I was just really disappointed it took that long. And I think throughout my career, I've gotten into, like, whenever I feel like my confidence is slipping, I go back to that time where I got out of it, and it allows me to get out of it much quicker, like within a game or two instead of 9 months. And so if I didn't have that experience, I don't think that I would have learned to be able to pull myself out of that space.
Well, it's beautiful because as we look at you as a professional, you've come a long way, because one of the things that you said is when you were stepping on to the court for the first time to play your first preseason game, you had a thought like, do I belong? And then that same year, you won WNBA Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. How can both of those things coexist?
Because, like I said, I felt myself reverting to that space I was in my freshman year, where I'm questioning, my ability and just overthinking everything when it comes to the court. And I'm like, I need to stop right now. I never want to be in that space again. And because I went through all of that I did my freshman year, it allowed me to recognize that I was getting into that mental space and pull myself out of it. And then, once training camp was over, I came out with a good game, and it was kind of behind me from there.
And how are your parents whenever you were in that dark hole?
My parents have always been super supportive. I love my parents. I mean, every single year they ask me if I still want to play basketball, even through college. They would support me no matter what. And so they were really encouraging. They give advice when I want it. They don't if I don't want it. They've always been my number one supporters.
Did you have to set the boundaries on that?
No. I was really lucky. I don't know what to say. I mean, they kind of knew from the beginning. I think they have a really good grasp on my personality. And so they kind of know what I need.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful, because I want to just show you something. This is something that we do with the Academy, and we did this for Napheesa, and I want to remind her of this.
The performance skills I picked are hardworking, competitive, accountable, confident, and energetic. The moral skills I picked are honest, appreciative, humble, socially aware, and caring.
So as you look at the skills that you picked, can you help people understand that, like, if you focus on those things, that can work at a young level, but it can still work at the professional level?
I think those are just skills you need in life in general. If you want to be successful in anything, you have to be hardworking, competitive, what you're doing. I mean, all those things, really both checklists. I mean, if you have those, you're going to be successful in whatever you do, whether it's sports or anything else.
And so as you look at that, what do you think on the relational side, the moral side, that you struggled with most in college?
The moral side? Maybe being honest, but with myself about, like, why I'm struggling or what's going on. And I think that kind of comes with confidence too. Sometimes you have to lie to yourself, and you have to be like, say that you're better than you are to get your confidence up. And so maybe the honesty part.
And can you break that down just a little bit more? Because I think there's a lot of people who can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have all heard fake it till you make it. And that's true, I think, your entire life. Everyone's going to have moments where they struggle with confidence. It's just how you approach it. I mean, I think it's the same saying with being brave. It's not the absence of fear, it's pushing through that fear. And so when you get into those slumps, you have to be really positive in your head, because that's what's going to change it.
And then as you look at the performance side, what was the hardest thing for you in college?
Confident or energetic, because especially when you're suffering from confidence, being energetic is really hard because you're in your head, but you have to be that for your teammate. And that kind of helps pull you out too. If you're focusing not on yourself, but on your team and making the team better, it helps you to get out of your head, and then everything kind of flows naturally from there.
And what was the thought that you had in your mind when you were in that space where you were not feeling confident? What were you telling yourself?
It was definitely negative thoughts, and that's something that I've tried to change.
What did those sound like?
I mean, just like, why am I not getting it? What's wrong? Like, be confident. Why are you not being confident? Don't get yelled at. Do this right. Just everything negative that you can think of. And it's not, that never works if you're like that in your head.
So if I were to sit you down and say, hey, what are you saying to yourself? Boom, you write it out, and then you step away and you look at it. You would be able to give yourself really good advice on how to navigate that. Why is it hard to take your own advice?
Isn't that the $1 million question for everyone? I think it sounds good in theory, but you have to keep practicing it. It's like a habit. You have to do it over and over again. And my thought process didn't change overnight. I had to stick with it, and the fake it till you make it kind of motto, because there's always goals that you want to achieve. Like, you want to go to the gym 5 days a week. You're not just going to do that because you think it. You have to start practicing it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a hard mindset to change, especially habits in your head are really hard to change. But I saw that I wasn't being effective. I wasn't doing well in my sport, which I love to play, and it was becoming toxic to me my freshman year. And if I wanted to keep playing, I had to change my mindset. Otherwise, I wouldn't enjoy the sport anymore.
Well, and what we did is we created a vision of who you wanted to be at an early age. Take a look at this.
Napheesa is an amazing person on and off the court. During practice, she continues to be the hardest working person there. Her competitiveness helps to push her teammates to be better players. She's a confident leader, always holding herself and others accountable. And her energetic spirit never dulls, even in tough or stressful situations. Napheesa is also the most humble person I know. She's appreciative towards everyone and shows she cares for others by always being socially aware. She is also very honest and will give help to anyone who needs it. She was motivated to grow as a person and help others every day. I can truly say that she was a joy having on our team.
What do you think?
I think I've done my best to embody that. Yeah, I think I've done everything in my power to be that, because to me, being a good teammate is really important, and that is what a good teammate is also. So I think in every level that I've been, I've tried to do that, and I don't know, I think I've done it.
I actually do too. I mean, that's why I think you're one of my favorite athletes of all time, literally of all time. And so I would ask you about this. Why do you think more coaches don't focus on this aspect at younger ages when you know how important this is at the professional level?
I think a lot of things are like end result driven. Like, you want to win games, you want to make your players better, and so you think about what happens on the court, but what happens off the court and like people's mental space is so important. I really think sports are like an 80-20 balance between your mental game and your physical ability. And so I don't think everyone realizes that. And especially at a young age, you're not really thinking about how kids are taking that, but they're really sponges and they feel even more deeply when you're younger, all of those emotions. So I think they would be definitely worth something to focus on more.
Well, and I want to just show you how we would do this. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
Isn't this amazing? So this is how we would try and explore these character skills. So we tied their wrists together, and we remember when we ate Chipotle, man, we love Chipotle. And so you can see Sarah, Michael's sister, and it's basically you have to give and take if we're gonna all eat together, right? And when we did some of those experiences and you had those conversations with them, what did that do for your awareness as a young person?
I think it kind of took you out of your own headspace and it made you realize that other people are feeling this way too. We used to have a lot of deep conversations. As you guys know, Brett loves deep conversations. So it kind of forced you to look inwards more than you would maybe at that age normally.
Again, I'm just telling you, I learned so much from going through this experience at a young age in my personal career, and I want to show you this.
Mike's one of the top basketball players in the country for his age. He's 15 years old in this picture. Anytime he throws a picture up on Instagram, he's getting between 500 and 800 likes as a 15-year-old. Why does Mike get a lot of attention? Because he's good at basketball. Let's go deeper. Do you see how for some athletes that their feeling of acceptance and belonging could come from them being good at sports? Here's another example. Napheesa threw this up. Look how many likes she got. Close to 1,500. She's 18. Why is she getting that much attention? Because she's good at basketball. So do you see how it would be possible for someone to think that the reason people care about them is because they're good at basketball?
I think it's funny too how we thought those were so many likes. Like, wow, I'm popular. I think that's really actually a little bit detrimental, especially to kids, to feel that way. Now as a professional athlete, like that is a huge part of my identity, sports. But when you're a kid and you feel like your only value, I didn't feel that way, but I know a lot of people did, that your only value is through sports. If you're not performing well, you can see how they would get so upset, and you could see how they could deal with confidence issues because you have a bad game. And if that's your identity, you feel worthless, you feel like you're a bad person. So having that so closely tied, I think, is really, really dangerous.
And how did it ever get blurry for you at the higher levels?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still blurry. It's such a huge part of my life. My entire life revolves around my daughter and basketball, and it's only been my daughter the past year. So for the first 25 years of my life, it's like all been basketball. But thankfully, like I said, I have a really good family support and I have interests outside of basketball. So when I feel like I'm getting too wrapped up in that, I can kind of seclude or step back and do those other things.
And when you talk about that, you're like, because that is real, okay? And this is probably the best point that I've learned around athletes is we thought that those were so many likes. And it feels so big when you're in the moment. But then as you look back on it, you're like, man, that was a really small stage. Like it's so much different when you're headlining. How can you help people understand that if they can master the small stages, they can learn to have the strength for what the headlining stage brings?
That's tough. I mean, I think you have to have a really good base. You have to know and do other things when you're at a young age, especially like specializing in a sport young, I don't think is a good idea because your identity gets wrapped up into it. You should do multiple sports. You should do something outside of sports. You see your friends. Even though, like I said, I made the sacrifices when I got older, I still had those friends outside where I was still doing things with them.
And a lot of them were not basketball related, and you read a ton too.
Yeah, still love reading, but yeah, so like I said, I did stuff outside of the sport, so it allowed me to not have my whole identity be like living and dying with what happens on the court.
And so when you are 0-5 right now, and that's the third time I brought that up. Did you know that?
Yeah, I noticed. On stage.
Yeah.
He did it before a stage too.
What are you, like, how are you processing that? Because everyone has dips. How do you not compound the negative and keep the big picture when you're in a dip?
I think it's actually easier as a professional because everyone is so good at this level. You could literally lose any night. Obviously, it doesn't feel good to be 0-5, but I think where our team is at, we have a lot of young people we're building, and we have gotten better every game. We just have to put 40 minutes together. So it's disappointing when you lose the winnable games, especially, but all you can do is move on. I mean, we have a game tomorrow. So it's such a fast turnover. It allows you to leave the past in the past and hopefully only take those good parts and like implement them in the next game.
And as you see the rookies come in, what is the biggest struggle you're seeing as they make that transition?
For them or for the rest of the team? The fast pace of the game is really hard. How strong people are, the physicality is really hard. And then I think you can always just tell like the maturity of a player. And I didn't realize it when I was a rookie. I felt, maturity the same as everyone else. But you can see now being 5 years in the league, the difference between rookies and like vets or people who have been there for a little bit.
Like what are the signals that show maturity?
Just the fast pace which they play. So like sometimes they trip over their feet, not literally, but they're going so fast. They don't have that pace yet. And then also like the decisions that they make, sometimes we can like trick them into doing different things on the court. Just because you've been around the block once or twice, you can. Candace Parker, oh my gosh, her favorite thing to do to rookies when you're guarding her in the post, she'll pretend she throws it over your head. She gets someone to turn every single year. It's a highlight every single year.
That's hilarious.
So for you guys, when you come in, don't look.
And as you think about off the court too, from a maturity standpoint, how do you delineate mature versus immature?
Just the things they talk about. Just stuff that, especially in my stage of life, isn't as important to me as it is then. My stage of life or what they talk about?
Like what is if you were trying to talk to young athletes, hey, I am a franchise player. And when I overhear conversations, these are signs of immaturity.
They're talking about where they're gonna play, like overseas. They're like, okay, so if I get this much money, is that a lot? Is that really good? It's just stuff that you learn over time, like being in the league. They just ask questions that you wouldn't know, obviously, coming into the league, but we've known it for so long, it just seems like, you could tell it's fresh blood in there.
Yeah, and then what about from a maturity standpoint? What are they asking?
I really love our rookies. They've done a great job of really being a sponge because sometimes you have rookies who come in who think that they know everything, and that's a sign of immaturity as well. It's honestly kind of offensive just because we've been here for so long and you think that you know better and they can't possibly, you've never been in this situation before. And so when they ask a lot of questions, they want to know how things work, and they want to know what coach is looking for. They want to know what we're looking for, how to be better. I think that's a sign of maturity, because you want to make sure that you're staying in this league that's so hard to stay in.
And if you had one thing from a leadership perspective that you taught yourself about being a professional and about your teammates taking cues from you, what is that lesson?
To work hard, because so many things can be overshadowed by that. Like, if you don't know a single play, but you're working your butt off on defense, coach will keep you. And she said that before. Like, if you are working hard and you're giving 100% every time, you're being a good teammate, it's so much more valuable than someone who has like a little bit more talent than you.
Let's give it up for Napheesa.